right, welcome back to the Chi-Town Commercial Podcast. I'm your host, Bailey Wheeler, and today I'm really excited because we have Lexi Leckemby from the Graham Group on. Thanks for coming.
Yay, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. I'm really excited because we work, hand in hand every single day, but most of the time I feel like we're running all different directions, so it's nice to get you pinned down and get you on the podcast and get to know your background.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Yes. Okay, so for our listeners, let's just give them a little bit of a background on you, and then we'll deep dive throughout the podcast.
Okay, sounds great. Well, I have lived in Cheyenne for about 21 years. I came from Colorado. I was actually born in Tensley, Wyoming, population 300. Moved to the Thornton area, lived there my whole childhood, grew up there, and then got back to Wyoming just as quick as possible. I was in banking for about 20 years. 10 of those years were commercial lending, and then I made the move to commercial real estate.
Wow, that's incredible. I did not know you lived in Colorado, so that's something that we work together, and I just didn't even know.
How fun.
Yes. Okay, so being in commercial lending, how has that been like a gateway into commercial real estate?
I think it's my most valuable asset as a commercial real estate agent. That background has been invaluable to me. I mean, just being able to look at the numbers, see if a project works, whether you're an owner or an investor. Commercial real estate, there's not a lot of emotions. It's really just about business and numbers and seeing if the project fits the budget and
Sure.
Vice versa. So it's been really great to have that background, and I think it's an advantage to my clients to be able to use that as well.
Awesome. Well, everybody's probably going to ask, how did you end up in commercial real estate? Can you give us why that changed for you? Why lending to commercial real estate? Was there something that was missing in either field? Do you miss lending? How did that all transpire?
It was kind of an accident. I wasn't looking. Ben Troutwine was the broker at Coldwell Banker at the time, and I wanted to have a conversation with him. I had kind of just started my investment journey and just chatted with him, and we had a great conversation, and he said he was looking for someone to join his team with a background like mine, and we had some really great conversations, and Ben was really great to have me on his team. I was really nervous and hesitant as a banker. Those are kind of type A people, as you know. So to go from a cush bank job into crazy real estate was nerve-wracking, but it's absolutely the best decision I've ever made. I can't say I miss banking because I get to use that skill set almost every day in my job here. So,
Sure. Well, I can tell you as a member of the Graham Group, when you came on, it was just, for me, it was great because it was another woman joining the team. So having that relationship has been awesome. But we all just play so many different roles within that team aspect. And so I love getting to hear the lending and the knowledge background that you have. So we all have different roles again. And so it sounds like along with your lending role, you have a background in investment. So can you talk a little bit about that? And, even before you were in commercial real estate, how'd you get into that, that space?
yeah, absolutely. So I like to stay busy, and I really love real estate. I've always had a passion. If you're not licensed, you don't get all the information, but you kind of scour Zillow and Realtor.com and look for opportunities. And I was able to turn my first home, my primary residence, into a rental after I bought my second home. And then after that, I bought another rental property with money that I had saved up for a down payment. And, if you're saving up 20% per unit and you're working a bank job where you have to budget that in, you're not going to go very far. So then I realized I could use the BRRRR strategy. And so I started to BRRRR a few properties. And so my first real active year in real estate, I believe I acquired 9 doors, which was really exciting. So that was probably the most active I was in real estate. And now, and not in my individual real estate investment career. And then once I made the move into brokerage and went to Coldwell Banker, it's obviously slowed down because I'm working more for my clients. So that's kind of how I got into it. And, it's really nice to be able to have all the resources I've had in lending and then investment. I'm able to help my clients make those connections. They need a plumber, they need inspector, they need all these things, and I have that experience and those resources to be able to share. And so I feel like I'm a natural born connector. I love connecting people with the resources that they need, and even resources within the community, right? Not always just business or real estate related.
Sure. So you're such a bubbly person. I feel like relationships is who you are. If I could pick one thing about you
That's so
working with
sweet
you,
because I am. I love
yes,
my
the
relationships.
relationships is just so big, and I feel like that makes you very special asset to our team as well. But so how are you utilizing those tools now? Now that you have all these resources, we have all the access to the MLS and things that we didn't know before. Sometimes we'll know about things before they hit the market. Have you been able to use that to your advantage a little bit in your own personal portfolio, or is that kind of stopped a little
Yeah, it's
bit?
kind of stopped, slowed way down. I think two different reasons. The market slowed down,
Sure.
and things aren't what they used to be when I first started.
Mm-hmm.
This was pre-COVID, and then I think I put my clients first. If I have a lot of clients who have a lot of specific needs, and so when I see those needs, I like to fill those needs with the active listings on the market.
Wonderful. Okay, so with all the different classes, we talk about this a lot. I feel like we're not a Denver brokerage, so we're Cheyenne brokerage. So there's so much of everything. There's not an abundance of one thing, but there's always a little bit of everything. So we've all seen, we've all dealt with most each class. What's been your favorite class to do? Since
Yeah.
since you've been in.
Yeah, I would say my two favorite asset classes are polar opposites. I love industrial, really because there's a really high demand for industrial with a really limited supply in Cheyenne. As you know, it's really hard to find those properties and meet our clients' needs in that asset class. So that's its own unique challenge. And then on the very opposite end is another unique challenge with office space. There is more office space on the market with less users. So it is interesting. They really are kind of polar opposites with the supply and demand situation. But I would say those are my favorite asset classes.
Awesome. Well, I also too share passion for the industrial market, as you know. That's kind of been my niche, and probably because we just have a limited supply, and so you get to know that class really well. You specifically were involved in a great project this last year for an office space downtown. That was able to change hands, and you were able to help represent landlord and tenant as well. Can you talk a little bit about that? I know that some of the things you probably can't share, but I'm hoping that by doing this podcast, we can give listeners knowledge and things of that nature for projects in Cheyenne that they probably have no idea, and kind of that transaction and kind of your challenges. And
Yeah,
can you just
absolutely.
Talk?
Yeah, let's talk about the HealthWorks transaction in downtown Cheyenne. That was a really amazing transaction to be a part of. That was definitely relationship based. I had someone reach out to me and ask me if I knew of any medical or office space available. This is what they're thinking. And I did know about this office space. We actually just signed a listing agreement for lease only, and the owner did not want to sell it. He really wanted to lease it. And so I was kind of able to talk to the owner and talk to HealthWorks about how this might look. Maybe we can do a long-term lease with a buyout. And in the end, they were able to purchase it without a lease. It was just such a fun and fulfilling transaction for Cheyenne. I mean, if anyone knows where HealthWorks is at currently, they're in this little tiny, feels like a tin box. And the services they provide are amazing. And so to go to a 30,000 square foot space where the first floor is going to be medical services, the second floor, I believe, dental services, and then the third floor is going to be mental health, it's going to be a game changer. So it was just so fun to be able to put that together. It did take a year and a half to do. I had to kind of hold hands on both sides and help people see the value of buying and selling versus leasing and renting. And they're off to the races, really.
Yeah, that's incredible. And I know that you had some, behind the scenes to get that transaction done. There was everything in between from, budgeting and board approvals and health issues from the other side and getting those, I think that's some of what people don't see that we as agents do to try to get the transaction done. And that's where that relationship building comes in, and that they really trust you to get that across the finish line. So I know that there's a lot that goes behind that. So that was amazing.
Yeah, it was a lot. I mean, like I said, a year and a half worth of active work. And, I learned a lot, and it was just a great transaction. I think it's going to be so great for our community.
Yeah, that's such an asset for downtown specifically, which is going to be huge for our community. I feel like we have a lot of that stuff kind of going on right now, which is super exciting. Let's talk about the Graham Group a little bit specifically, and your role. We, in the first episode that we did, Jake interviewed me and kind of gave an overview of the Graham Group. And I talked a little bit about, there's 5 of us, and I think we all do so many different things that sometimes I don't even know what you do because we just keep the wheel going, you know, as long as it's going and it works, then sometimes we just don't ask questions. So I would love to know how you would define your role, and then just kind of the support that you have with the Graham Group, but also with Coldwell Banker. I think Coldwell Banker is a huge part of, you know, us behind the scenes as well, and that support is really amazing.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's almost like 2 layers of support, 2 safety nets for you. I think that's the advantage we have at the Graham Group. You know, we have a lot of support around us, not only Coldwell Banker and all the support we have at the office, but within our group, you know, there's 5 of us. And so really balls aren't being dropped. We have systems, we have processes, and there's 5 of us. You know, if one person's on vacation, there are 4 other people to help out and jump in. So I'm really grateful for that. We have such a good team, as you know.
Oh, we do. It's awesome.
We have such a good team. And my role on the team is mostly sales. So just negotiating transactions, obtaining listings, some marketing, calling on clients, relationship management. You know, in my early days of lending, I was called a relationship manager, and that's really what I feel like my life is, even here, just relationship management.
Isn't that like a woman's definition of
Yes.
relationship manager?
My
Motherhood, work.
management. It is, but that's kind of how I feel like my role. That is my role at Coldwell Banker and the Graham Group is relationship management, really, and a lot of that is sales. And I don't think of it so much as like pushy used car sales, right? When you hear the word sales, you almost cringe. But I really think it's just building relationships and meeting needs. You know, I see you do it all the time. Our whole team is so good at it. You know, a listing comes up or a need comes up and we're able to meet those needs. And even if there's nothing out there, I mean, I've had many transactions where I have a buyer and they're looking to place some money and there's really nothing on the market that fits, and we just are able to manifest these great opportunities for them, and it's a cool place to be in.
Yeah, we try really hard to meet. You know, we do meet every week, and I feel like some of our best conversations and transactions come out of meeting every single week.
Absolutely.
And just like you said, you know, we're like, hey, can you think of something that would fit this person's needs? I think a lot of that, you know, you're from Cheyenne, so you have a lot of that background. And then also the support from Ben and Rob, that their background and knowledge and old clients, and I don't really want to say old clients because they've been able to retain so many clients throughout the years. So I think that's a huge advantage that we have, and that we can all put our heads together and, you know, find something that works for everybody.
Absolutely. I really feel like we can do anything.
I know.
We really can.
Awesome. It is awesome. Okay, let's talk about being a woman within the industry. Not that it's all man driven, but mostly, you know, residential. You do a little bit of both. So let me back up just for a second. You do a little bit of mix of both residential and commercial.
Yeah.
How does each one look so different as far as being a woman in each industry?
Yeah, it is interesting. You know, I feel like there are a lot more women in residential real estate for sure. And maybe because, and I'm just going to blanket statement this, but maybe because we're better with emotions and kind of navigating through an emotional situation. Buying residential real estate is typically very emotional. And so I think it helps to have someone who can navigate that. And then in commercial real estate, it really, like I said before, it's not as emotional. It's a business decision. If the numbers work, it works. And if not, it doesn't work. So, you know, they're both really fun and interesting. Commercial real estate is, like I said, my commercial lending is my background. So commercial real estate is interesting work, and it's probably my passion. But I also, you know, if I have a connection, a relationship within the community that reaches out and asks me to help them with any real estate transaction, I am just so grateful and humbled to be able to help those people. So yeah, I'm always happy to do both, but definitely commercial real estate is my passion, and it really is interesting work.
Yeah, you are a busy lady because you are, I feel like you're constantly running. You have 3 older children that are all out of the house now. And so you're just grinding out there, which is awesome.
It's a great phase of life to be in. I was really sad when I became an empty nester this fall. My baby went over to the University of Wyoming, but it's a great career to be in at this time. I can work as much or as little as I want, and I just work a lot, I feel like, and
Yeah.
I'm grateful for it. And, when you love what you do, it's not as much work.
Sure. Sure.
You know?
You play too with your kids, which is
Absolutely.
amazing.
Yeah, when my kids call and want to do something, I'm all in.
Yes.
For the most part.
Yes, that's amazing. Well, I love seeing how you're comparing both residential and commercial. I feel like I'm always at a constant battle of, trying to pick one. And I think that Cheyenne's, again, we're not Denver, so you can do a little bit of both. So I feel like residential really, the transactions that I did really did help me through some commercial transactions too, and vice versa. I do feel like, yes, commercial real estate is mostly business, but I've had some really emotional, surprisingly, commercial transactions that I felt like took some of that experience from residential and getting over those hoops to like translate to commercial. I don't know if you feel the same.
Yeah, and you're probably right. There is some emotions involved probably in both transactions. I feel like residential is just a little more emotive, and maybe I think that commercial should be more business-like just because I know the business of it. But there are emotions probably in both sides, and it's a good way to look at it because you can use your skills from one to the next.
Yeah, I feel like here they they kind of cross over a little bit. And everything. So because of your background, I know that you watch the market, a ton as far as interest rates and we're using that word, creative financing. The last year, that's been like the word. What are you seeing, and how are you helping some of your clients get over some of these hurdles as far as that goes in commercial real estate?
Yeah, so I would say the number one thing is working with a local bank. I think they have a lot more options and definitely more advantages. So any of our local banks here, they really do try and get creative. They really do care about small business, so I think that is a huge advantage. Commercial rates really haven't moved. I know mortgage rates have moved over the last 30, 45 days, and we're grateful for that, right? But yeah, commercial rates are still what seems to be sky high compared to 4%. So it's going to be an interesting time to navigate. We have a lot of maturing debt coming up, myself included. I have some debt at 4%, and when that balloons in a year or two, it's going to be 9% if rates don't come down. And so that's going to be really hard to make things cash flow. And so I think a lot of our investors and owners are going to have some challenges coming up. And so just for us being able to foresee those challenges, some maturing debt, how do we help them? How do our lenders help them? How can we partner with our lenders so we can be proactive in that? I think is going to be really important. But yeah, I think just working with a local lender is going to be your biggest win. They're just able to do, and I don't want to say anything specific and commit any lenders to anything, but I've been able to navigate transactions with really little to zero cash down. In the end, there might be cash injection at the beginning, but in a very short period of time, I'm zero cash into a deal. So I think it's very specific to the transaction and the person. And again, I don't want to commit anyone to doing anything, but I'd love to have more conversations with anyone if they're interested in, like you said, creative financing, especially in this rate environment.
We've also seen a lot of banks exit the picture and, more landlord owner carries like you're talking. I feel like that was like a big, I want to say that was something that I hadn't seen yet within my commercial real estate career that really became popular. They were even doing it with some residential. So I felt like that was kind of on the table too, which was interesting to navigate through title as well as, due diligence and
attorneys.
Things like that. Yes. Did you have any experiences with those that were wins for you?
Like you said, we didn't see a lot of seller carry, especially when I first came on, but I've seen a lot of it in the last year and a half. We had a really great transaction. It was a win for everyone. The seller was able to earn 6% by lending the money to the buyer, and the buyer obviously saved quite a bit of money in interest costs. They were probably going to be looking at 9% with a lender, and so it really worked out. The seller is an entity, and so they probably weren't going to earn any more than maybe 5% in a savings account. So it was a win-win, and it helped get the deal done.
Yeah. At the end of the day, that's what it's about, is trying to get the deal done. So I have really enjoyed, every avenue of learning through commercial real estate, whether it be lending or construction or something that I just had no clue about. Usually I have to trip over it before I figure it out. But what are some of like the major hurdles that, besides lending, like that you have a great background on that you didn't have that you feel like you've had to learn and now you're kind of figuring that avenue out? So I can give you my 2 cents on that. Something that you see when businesses can't afford is we are in that leasing realm. And a lot of that is in retail. And so we have spaces that are Class B, sometimes C space here that new businesses are moving into town that want Class A space. And so the challenge in that is, do people dump in a ton of money into a space that they don't own because they can't afford to buy? And how does that look from the landlord side? And can we meet in the middle and try to get a win-win for both? Maybe a temporary solution for them until rates get better and they can afford to buy or their businesses get better. So I feel like that's been a challenge in trying to figure out what those cost, and then you throw in the construction side. It's just been something I've had to learn along the way. Again, trip over usually. But for me, that's been a huge learning curve.
Yeah, I would agree with that. It is a challenge to get landlords and tenants to see eye to eye on tenant improvements. So that definitely is a challenge. And construction, learning the construction process from the ground up. As a lender, we did a lot of construction lending, so I feel like I knew the process and the steps. But in a lot of our projects, we're way more intimately involved, especially in permitting and working with the city and the county. As a lender, you just kind of go, you get a construction draw, you make sure the work's been done, is the electrical in, is the plumbing in, but you don't work through the city permitting process and approvals and all of those things. So that's been a huge learning curve for me, just seeing how that works and how to navigate that and the time that it takes. And sometimes I feel like you're fighting an uphill battle.
Yes. Yes.
Or our clients are fighting an
Yes.
uphill battle. So that would be a big challenge that I think I'm still learning the process for. I just, not every situation's the same, and so there's always something to learn, I think, in our world, and I'm grateful for it because I always want to be learning.
Yeah, I feel like that's always I feel like that's why I love commercial real estate, because it's always a challenge. Like, yes, you're doing basically the same thing every day, but I feel so different. Each transaction is so different.
It's always different.
Each person is so different, landlord, seller, and the situations just, obviously provide its own challenges, which is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. It is interesting, we walk into a situation, and whether it's the landlord and the tenant or the buyer and the seller, they both want the same thing. One wants to sell, one wants to buy, one wants to lease, one wants to lease. And it's sometimes challenging to get to the middle, right? We all want the same thing, but it is just trying to get everyone to the same spot and do it amicably. So I think that's a challenge also, just getting all parties to kind of meet in the middle and everyone wins.
Yes. I think some of the funniest experiences through that exact scenario is we fight tooth and nail to get to a point where everybody's agreeing, and sometimes they don't. And the last straw is to get everybody on a phone call, and then it just is done.
Yeah.
It's like, that's all we had to do.
It is a little communication, a little relationship building.
So sometimes we're not needed at the end because all I needed to do was just get in a room together. But
Absolutely.
I think, so I definitely agree with that. Okay, let's talk about leasing a little bit. Leasing is definitely different than, a for sale.
Absolutely.
But I feel like sometimes leasing work is more than a for sale. What's been your experiencing with leasing, and can you talk a little bit about that?
I agree. Leasing, truly is a lot of work, especially like you said before, when you have some TI, some tenant improvement requests. It is hard work trying to get the landlord to pay for something the tenant can't afford, or the tenant to pay for something they know they're not going to be able to receive full value after the lease has expired. And that is a challenge, and it is a lot of work. And we use our resources. We get our contractors out there to give bids, and we have to manage that work. We have to put budgets together, and we have to put the numbers to it. And it is a lot of work. And so I would say leasing is just as challenging as sales, if not even more so.
Yeah, I feel the exact same way. I do feel like I like the leasing part because you get to see a lot of new businesses. I feel like sometimes these are startup businesses that don't have a lot of history, background, financials to go through. And so there's a risk involved. And so it's very fun to learn about the new businesses that are coming and that just need to get in and get their feet wet.
Absolutely. And I think that's our passion, right, is helping small business and helping Cheyenne grow. We always talk about why can't we thrive like Fort Collins or any other area. And I think we're finally starting to have some investment in Cheyenne, downtown, West Edge. I'm really excited for Cheyenne. I know I've stopped going to Fort Collins as much. I used to go quite a bit, and I should be ashamed to say that.
No,
But
Torchy's tacos.
yeah, there's a lot. Well, there's a lot down there, and so you see Cheyenne grow just a little bit every year, and we're actually seeing. I mean, you see this all the time. We see Colorado businesses now coming to Cheyenne, and they're either relocating or growing north, and that's really exciting to see as well.
So exciting. We just have so much growth on the forefront of Cheyenne, and I just don't think it's going to stop, which is exciting and kind of scary and daunting at the same time. I think we've always had this Wyoming wide open spaces, we're all, are free to think. And I think sometimes people get overwhelmed by the growth in Cheyenne, but I truly can tell you from being raised in a small town, I am loving this because it's just so good for us specifically. I don't know if you feel the same way.
I agree, and it's different perspectives. So when I first moved to Cheyenne, I came, like I said, from the Denver area, and that's a big town. I mean, Denver's millions of people, and coming to Cheyenne was a small town for me. And then working in banking, you meet so many people, and people would move from these other smaller communities, and Cheyenne was the big town for them. And so it's interesting to see everyone's perspective. To me, Cheyenne's still a small town, and we walk down the street and we know half the population. I love Cheyenne. That's probably the reason I love Cheyenne so much, is it's such a great community. We have such a wide network here. But yeah, I'm excited to see it grow, and I think it's going to be good for our youth. Giving them things to do, for our young families, giving them things to do. I think it's going to be a definite positive.
Okay, as you enter 2024, what are some big things that are on the horizon for you in commercial real estate, or as, a personal goal for you? Anything coming up you want to share with the listeners?
I'm just so passionate about helping my clients, so I'm looking forward to finding opportunities for them and meeting and working with them to kind of make their dreams come true. When I was a lender, I used to say I was a dream maker. I could make dreams come true, and I think even more so in commercial real estate. So yeah, I'm really excited to just continue to learn and work for my clients. And then personally, I've been a private lender historically, and I'm going to kind of ramp that up and scale that to a bigger business. With my lending background, I feel like I'm able to do that easily. So like we talked about, sometimes people don't fit every box that a bank needs, and I know that from experience. And so sometimes they need some sort of lending outside of banking, and so that's where I would come into play. And so I'm excited to scale that up and be able to help our community and help our flippers and things like that.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on. I'm excited to have you again.
Thank you so much.
This is going to be an ongoing thing, so I'm just excited to share knowledge and just, what we do, and hopefully somebody finds value out of the podcast. So thanks for being on.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.